Okay, hold on. Don't shoot.
Now, if you've seen this scene before, you know it's a little eerie.
Lila, let's go. Lila?
But when I saw it, I couldn't help but fixate on the bow. 1 year before I was born, Terry Mullen coined the term the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon. This came about because Terry was in a conversation about the Bader-Meinhof gang. And like a day after his conversation, he noticed the same group of people in a newspaper. And this isn't something he would have typically noticed. You see, it's only because he talked about it the day before that he actually noticed it in the paper. It's like if you buy a blue car and then you start noticing all the blue cars on the road. Those blue cars were there all along. It's not like they just showed up. It's just the fact that you just started noticing them because you now have your own. It's called the frequency illusion, the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon. I used to work in construction, and one of the jobs I did is I was a roofer on residential roofs. And after doing that job for a couple months, I started noticing every single roof that needed done. I'd drive past roofs and I wouldn't look at the house, I would look at the roof rather than the house. And to build bows for a living, I notice every bow in every movie, and I don't only notice the bow, oh cool, it's archery. I think of what I would have to do in order to build that bow. Therefore, I have found it quite exciting to take inspiration from movies because there was some prop master, there was some guy to build these bows for these movies. Now, some are mass produced, but most of the time there's these prop bows, and it's fascinating because they look really cool in the movies. So I have the curiosity to know, could I make these bows? The difficulty is, in most movies, the scenes are really quick and you only get a few seconds. You normally don't get up close shots of the actual bow, just showing the entire bow. Normally the bow is the prop. It's not about it, but it adds to the scene. Therefore, I have to make these snap judgments of what I think is going on. So today we're gonna pull the string on the opening scene of Endgame. This bow is really unique and really interesting, so I'm very excited to make it. Now, this one's not gonna be super easy. It could take days, probably weeks for me, because we've got to go from nothing to a complete bow, which means in this case, some form building. Hey, real quick, I think you're gonna want to hear this. I'm super pumped today that Element is sponsoring today's video. It's amazing when I get a partner with a brand who has a product that I've been using every day for 3 years. Element is an electrolyte drink mix that comes in these little pouches and you dump it in your water. It is delicious with 0 sugar and everything you want and nothing you don't. To me, Element means more energy. Water doesn't really rehydrate us, but mixing salt in with it does. I drink it daily before my morning coffee or right after. As I'm sure you've seen, this bottle sitting in the back of all the videos. This is always full of Element when I come to the workshop in the morning. Also, the other time I really have it is on my runs. Whether I'm doing a neighborhood jog or an ultra marathon, I've been taking Element with me. Now, my favorite flavors, watermelon or raspberry or orange salt, are my absolute favorites. Watermelon's the top though. About 6 months ago, I was in the kitchen and my 3-year-old came in and said, "Hey Dad, I want special drink." And I was like, "What are you talking about? What's special drink?" And after we played the guessing game for a while, I found out it was Element. And so he coined the term special drink, and I'll take like maybe a half pouch and put it in his little water bottle or sippy cup, and he loves it. Like, if that doesn't tell you it's good, I don't know what will. Element can help prevent and eliminate headaches, muscle cramps, fatigue, sleepiness, all the common symptoms of electrolyte deficiency. If you have an active job, it would be fantastic. Or if you're just on your feet, this is fantastic. To replenish your electrolytes so that your energy stays high for a longer period of time. That's why I really like Element, is it keeps my energy up, and I have a noticeable, significant difference when I take Element than when I don't. So with that, Element has been very generous to give you guys a special deal today. You should really take advantage of this. Right now, Element is offering you guys a free sample pack. 8 different drinks. And to qualify for this free pack, all you have to do is make 1 single order of any drink mix. This is a great way to try 8 of their flavors or share Element with a salty friend. Get yours at drinkelement.com/Kramer. Now this deal is only available through my link, so you must go to drinkelement.com/Kramer. Thank you so much, Element, for sponsoring today's video. It means a ton. A bow is a really interesting instrument because there's so many different ways to make it and so many designs. This one was a replica from the Lord of the Rings, and then you've got something like this that's one that I shoot every single day. There's hundreds of materials and hundreds of different designs which lead to thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of combinations to make a bow. But you realize if there's millions of ways to make a successful bow, there's billions of ways to screw it up. Hawkeye's teaching his daughter to shoot a bow in this scene, and it's a really, really cool looking bow to me. What I find interesting about this one is they built it to look rustic. They built it to look really used. It almost looks like there's hatchet marks in the riser handle of the bow. But from my best estimation, they also used clear fiberglass. So it's got this wood rusticness to it with clear fiberglass to give it that strength, but it still has the wood look because clear fiberglass will show you actually what's underneath it. This means you get a really strong bow, but it actually looks quite rustic, like a full solid wooden bow at the same time. Normally with my fiberglass bows, I finish them out to make them look as clean as possible. I spend hours sanding this down so that there is not even one single scratch mark or tool mark in the handle. Today we're gonna intentionally add these marks. So for the limbs, we're gonna use clear fiberglass and we're gonna use bamboo. But then we move over to the handle and I'm gonna use this spalted elm on the handle. I think this will look pretty close to the one in the movie. The shape of a bow is what's called a reflex-deflex bow. It curves down coming off the handle and up near the limb tips. Here's an example of one. Off the handle, up to the tips. Now, it's gonna be a little bit different than this because in the movie, based on how the brace height is, I think it's a little bit more of a dramatic reflex. I believe the limb tips at rest are gonna be up above the handle. It also appears that there's a slightly larger brace height than optimal for this bow in the movie. This is probably to make it look cooler, but it appears to be about a 9.5 inch brace height, where probably 7.25 is gonna be better for this style of bow. The brace height's just changed based on the length of the bowstring, so that'll be really easy to replicate. Step one is to build the form, but before we build the form, we need to build a template. To build the form. One of the most difficult things with this type of bow is we have to match the handle shape to the form shape. Because how we get that reflex-deflex shape is not by removing material or removing wood like we would from a solid stave or a solid long. We actually get that shape by taking multiple thin pieces of material, bending them on a form, keeping that bend, clamping it down with glue on it. The glue is gonna harden this, so when we take it off the form, it'll stay like this rather than spring back. The problem with this is that the slightest imperfection in the form is going to show up on the bow. So the bow is only as good as the form. For this type of bow, it's worth front-loading the work on the form building and the preparation. Once we glue the bow together, the building of the bow is a lot quicker. So visually, we won't see much early on as far as the bow coming together, and then boom, we've got a sweet bow. But because of the particularity, because I want to make a really good bow, I'm going to take a little bit of time on this one. So this here is not the form, but it's gonna be the template for the form and the template for the riser shape. I'm using an old form from a takedown bow. The reason I wanted this is because the curve or the arc is what I need. And this is the right arc for the reflex-deflex bow I have. So I don't have to create a new arc. I can use this as a template for the template. And by an arc, I mean a section of a circle. If you expand a circle out really wide, this is part of the circle. Whereas if you take a form like this recurve form, this is not arc. It's not the shape of a circle. But on the reflex deflex blow, we wanted this flowing shape. So by doing one this way, flipping it over for the middle handle, flipping it back over for the other side of the limb, once you smooth all those out, you end up with a really cool reflex deflex bow shape. Okay, so I've started on the, well, I got the template and I started on the form. But what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna take this template and create the template for the riser so that it'll match properly with the type of material I'm going to use. So I'm going to have a separate template for the riser so that we can use the template router to route out the riser. Then we're gonna have the template for the form is going to be used to make the form, so we're actually going to use the form later on. Now to me, the riser looked like it was maybe a little bit bigger than this one here. So this is a 19-inch riser, so I think we're going to go maybe 23 inches, 22 inches. I'll measure on the form to see what it looks like. It seemed to have a very gradual fade out, and yeah, I think 22 inches would be pretty good. So if on the template, I come 11 inches on both sides, I think that's gonna be pretty accurate. Now, this section of the form is done, which is sweet. This board right here is definitely not square, and it's too small for a riser, so I need to cut this down into different pieces, square it up, and then combine it, glue it together so that we can have a solid chunk of wood that's large enough for the riser. So let's process this wood, glue it up. Man, we're making quick progress. Now with this handle, we're not gonna shape it completely. What we're gonna try to do is shape it for the form, and then after everything's glued together, we'll shape the final result. But we just basically need to get the profile correct now before we glue it up. So guys, I made a mistake and I didn't get film for getting this perfect, but it was just using that template to get this nice and clean, but we still have to do the arc on this other side of the handle. Now, because this is the only side touching the form and I'm not doing a top form for my clamping method, I can just eyeball these curves. First on the ends, we will come to a complete feather. And you want this feather to be very gradual on a one-piece bow. It's gonna start like that, and then we're gonna curve back up into the bow. So with this nice gradual curve up, that's all I need to cut out, and then we can glue up the riser. I'll do the rest of the carving later on. I just went and looked at the footage from the movie to remind myself how far in these fade outs should go. And on the arrow shelf side, so the top, it comes all the way down to the arrow shelf. Where on the other side, it stops quite early and leaves a pretty long handle. So I need to do a little bit of layout here before we finish up with the, I'm gonna have to recut some of this and make it more aggressive. One of the things I'll do is look at the riser to see if there's any knots or imperfections that I want to get rid of to make a specific side the arrow shelf. And this one looks fine. I always make the right the top. Let's mark this right here as the center. And I know I'm eyeballing this, but I know if I'm within a 1/4 inch, I am totally good here. So that is the center of the handle. That's where you're going to be holding it. So let's come up to here for the arrow shelf. So you'll see what I need to do is have this fade all the way in there. So we'll take out a little bit more on this top side, and then on the bottom, but I'll take out a slight bit more there as well to make it look and feel right. Yes, so this is now ready to glue up. We have it feathered where the tip literally bends, if you can see that right there. That comes to a feathered point, and that is perfect. Okay, here's my concern as far as the looks goes. This bamboo is pretty light colored. The glue may slightly darken it. I'm not sure if that's going to be as dark as the bow in the movie. Generally, when we put a spray finish on, it's gonna make it darker, but the spray finish actually doesn't touch the bamboo except on these small sides because of the clear glass. So I'm debating with myself whether the EA40 will darken this enough, which is the epoxy we're gonna use, or if we need to pre-stain the bamboo for it to look the way we want it to. I'm not sure. But I think this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna mix up just a tiny bit of EA40 and do a test piece of bamboo. I've got a head for the day. We'll leave that overnight. Tomorrow we'll get to see if it's the right color we want. Okay, here's an extra piece of bamboo we'll test on. I've done this before and I remember the EA40 made the bamboo a little darker. I just don't remember how much. So learning from the last video, let's do a test before we do the full glue up. We literally just need the smallest amount here. Because the EA40 has this dark tint to it, it's already like an amber color. We'll see how this turns out here. Okay, that's it. This is today. Let's check it to see how the color changes tomorrow. After 24 hours, it is solid, but it's not quite how I want it to look yet. So let's try something real quick. Remember, the idea is to add character to make this look kind of rustic. Even though we're using some modern materials, I want it to have that rustic look. See, if it's inconsistent, that's not going to be a bad thing. We kind of want it to look like wood, rustic. Okay, this may be an odd method, but I think it's gonna work. The idea came to me from building rustic furniture. You might paint multiple different colors, and then when you sand through, it gives those different layers, like it's a fake antique, basically. So the idea was to add a little bit of black paint because I use a really rough grit sandpaper when I'm thinning down this bamboo. The idea is that it would fall into those grooves and then I sand off the top. So there's almost more of a grain look to the bamboo. That's the goal. Right now, it looks like crap. Look at that. Now it's looking like what we want it to, with kind of more of the distinguished grain. Okay, that should do it right there. So that's the after, that's the before. That's gonna look a lot better, I think, and a lot more similar to that movie look we're going for. This is always the most annoying part of the bow build. To film, I actually enjoy glue ups, but filming it's a nightmare because I get glue on my hands, I don't want to touch the camera, I can't move it around. We're racing against time to get this in the heat box before the glue starts to cure so that it can spread out evenly. So filming is tough, but the method is to get glue in every single joint and then clamp the bow down sufficiently so that the glue spreads evenly and there are no gaps. That's the goal. There's thousands of ways to get there, so this is how I'm doing it today. Another day has dawned, and now we're getting super close. We only have one glue up left, and that's tip overlays. Besides that, it's just bow shaping. The length of the bow limbs changes how the tiller is, so in order to get these measurements accurate, it's definitely worth double checking. very heavy draw weight, probably 60 pounds right now. So I'm gonna reduce that and increase the brace height. We are looking very good. I'm gonna take a shot here. If everything checks out like I want it to, we're gonna put a finish on this and, oh, it's looking good. My brace height is a little bit lower right now. This is how I like a reflex deflex brace height, so I'm gonna shoot it this way. String it up later for photos or whatever. You ready? I haven't shot this yet. Shot one. All right, fellas, we're making great progress. Let's get this thing finished. Because the best is yet to come, because it's not looking right yet. It's not looking right because we need to finish it out. If I were the one who is tasked to make a bow for the opening scene of Endgame, this is the bow I would have made. And a super unique build. Here, take a look at it. It was so painful to not